Hello. So in my last video in the introduction, I got into something that, I think deserves a whole episode or at least part of it to itself, and that is the concept of the ideal versus what you find in reality in anything you do. Um, and I didn't really think this idea out in the first video, so I want to kind of use examples and think out what does that look like in the real world. So let's start with the ideal sense of comedy. So I think anyone that tells a joke likes to identify as themselves as someone who's funny, but there's a difference between telling a joke and being funny and then going up on stage to do stand-up comedy. And that's where I want to get into the first example. So I've only tried stand-up comedy once in my life. It was about a year ago when I tried this. And it's funny what you imagine it's like all these years, and then when you finally get up and do something like that and actually go through the steps and the motions of all that goes with, putting on a show for, I think I was up there for like a couple minutes. I can say for sure it's a lot harder than it looks. I mean, a lot of funny people have a difficult time structuring jokes and also having having people laugh at your jokes too. I mean, there's a lot that goes into being a funny stand-up comedian that until you try it yourself, you really don't appreciate the people that do it for a living and how well they do it. So, I remember when I went up there, um, I kind of said, I mean, it was like a room of maybe five people. I mean, this is what open mic nights are like. There isn't a whole lot of people laughing at your jokes. Most of the people there are doing their own jokes. They're up there to perform in front of you as well. And it is a tough road from telling a joke to making a living as a comedian that is. So that's kind of an example where, in the ideal sense, you say, "Oh, I want to, I want to work as a comedian, and I want to escape the business world or whatever you do." It's a lot harder than you think, so be very careful before you start making decisions based on the ideal. Try to expose yourself to um, what there is before you make a rash decision. What I'm trying to say basically, before you quit your day job, make sure you can do what it is you think you can do well um, to make a living doing that. Um, the, Once again, with the example of comedy, if you can make your friends laugh, that's a good start. If you can make people laugh who are complete strangers, that's even better. But to actually go up there and tell jokes that are gonna land, I mean, I want to do stand up again and get better at it, but it's really nerve wracking to get up there and have 2 3 minutes of jokes or a set, whatever it is. I mean, you, there's different ways you can do comedy, and that's all part of the learning process. But once again, just a small sample size that I need to continue with. But the ideal versus reality, it's kind of what's going on now with this YouTube channel that I'm trying to start here. I had an idea of what this would be like, but when you actually implement your ideas, it's a whole nother experience than when you just think about it in the abstract sense. I mean, it's you don't think about how am I going to record this, how am I going to post this, what's going to be my b-reel real videos. I'm still trying to figure all that out as I do this recording as here as I sit. So um that, and this gets into so many other things that you can do versus the way you think they're going to be done. I mean, it really is amazing. I truly believe that having a good idea is a start, but implementing that idea, I don't know what percentage of more difficult it gets, but it's way more difficult, in my opinion, to implement a good idea than to come up with a good idea because there's so many constraints. I mean, you start with time, and then there's resources, there's opportunity costs. I mean, if this is a good idea, if going to comedy, for example, is a good idea, what else could you be doing with your time that's even better? And how do you measure better? Is it based on your bank account? Is it based on how many people laugh at your jokes? I mean, it gets really, really abstract when you think about how am I going to do something versus, oh, this is a good idea. I mean, it is interesting. So that was the first topic I wanted to get into. I didn't think I would talk about the ideal versus reality, but after doing the first video, I realized there's actually something to kind of like expand on there. So that was interesting to me. And then, there are unexpected discoveries along the way. When I was doing the one night of open mic, and I had to find a parking spot, right? Like, and I was in this small town that is very receptive to the arts, but not very receptive when it comes to finding a parking spot. Where I live, parking can become quite the obstacle. So that was something I didn't expect along the way. But you know, there's all kinds of challenges that come up when you're trying to reach a certain objective, whether it's starting a career in an industry that, quite frankly, you wanted to be in your whole life, and then when you're actually there, when you get the job you want, it's not what you pictured when you were a kid. I mean, some people say, "Oh, I want to be an astronaut," for example. Um, but I mean, when you actually become an astronaut, it's probably nothing even close to what you dreamed of. I mean, it's probably not even what you want for a lot of people when you finally get the job you've always dreamed of, or you work for the company you've always wanted to work for. I mean, it's the cliche, the grass is always greener on the other side. It happens quite often. Some people get discouraged by this discovery, which I honestly don't think is the solution either. I think you need to see what's on the other side of life for you to have a holistic view. But what ultimately ends up happening is you just have to be satisfied with the life you're in. And because no matter what, there's unexpected discoveries along the way. And this gets into the final topic I wanted to get into with this little segment, I guess you could call this. So something I find interesting is the video game of Mario. So in Mario, there's these characters. I think they're called like Boo Ghosts, or I'm not really sure, but there's these types of ghosts that exist in Mario where when you're playing as Mario, these ghosts only try to attack you when your back is facing towards them and not you're not facing the ghosts themselves. Otherwise, when you face these ghosts head on, when you look at the Boo Ghosts directly, they're very timid and bashful, almost as if they're embarrassed to admit what they're really about. And I think I don't know what the programmers were thinking when they created this obstacle in the video game of Mario, but I think it's a very fascinating commentary on some people that act that way. There are definitely people in your life that you will meet that seem one way, and then when your back is turned to them, metaphorically and sometimes literally, they act a whole nother way. And I think that's such a odd lifestyle to have where you can't be authentic with people. I try to at one point in my at different points in my life I've practiced like I practice absolute, authenticity or truth telling. And no, I understand not every time with someone you can say exactly what's on your mind. I mean, that's what developing a verbal filter is all about. It's understanding there's a time and place, and not everything you think really needs to be said to someone, which is also something you have to grow up and understand. But the idea that you would meticulously craft an image in front of someone and then at the same time when they're not there be someone completely different to me is so unauthentic. Like, it's not being real. You're not to not be who you are, at least to the best that the context gives you, to me is a disservice to the person you interact with, but it's also a disservice to yourself. And I think people should practice being as authentic as possible, given the context of the situation they're in. I personally cannot stand someone that would want me to perceive them to be someone they're not. Why even take the effort? I mean, how much time do you have in your life where you could come up with multiple ways to be perceived other than just who you really are? I think people should just say what they mean and do what they say they're going to do. And I think we would live in a better society if people really practice that. I know that's not going to happen. I know that there's reasons for that that are legitimate, but I think a lot of people are driven by illegitimate reasons to fake being nice or fake being virtuous, where, why not just, if you're going to spend all that time pretending to be virtuous, why not actually practice virtue? This is something we can get into in another episode about ethics. That's something I've studied throughout the years. Look, I don't claim to be perfect either, but I really do find like virtue ethics and just different ethics systems to be very interesting. So we can get into that at a previous episode. But the point of this episode is I just wanted to talk about the people in your lives that might be unauthentic, and really think about, like, why are these so bashful when you look them in the eyes? I mean, it is an interesting concept that they are perfectly aware of the fact of what they're doing. If they're so aware of what they're doing, then why not just do what is right even when no one's looking? I mean, that's the idea of God, and I don't want to get into a religious view, but if you're going to claim, let's say, to be a good whatever religion you are, that comes with the idea of a higher power, and I really don't think you need the idea of a higher power to do what's right when no one's looking. I guess a lot of people do, and that's why religion has propagated as, extensively as it has. But why not just do the right thing when, because it's the right thing to do, and that's a good of itself. I did this because it was right, and not doing this was wrong. But a lot of people will do the wrong thing unless they're held accountable for their actions in some manner, whether it's punishment from a higher power or a manager or so forth. But I don't know. I just thought it was an interest. I'm a little naive. I haven't looked into why did the programmers of Mario create the Boo Ghost. But growing up, I mean, I never really thought about it until recently. Like, how interesting of you know, a criticism on behavior. But anyways, that once again, silly examples, and that's the point of this channel, is to take bigger ideas and apply them to the stupid things. Like, I'm not saying Mario's stupid, but I mean, uh, I don't know if any professors are really talking about Mario in their classrooms. So this is just me trying to be silly and use real life examples. But I hope you enjoyed this YouTube video. And yeah, I hope you keep watching, because I'm gonna keep putting out content for you guys. And yeah, I'm enjoying this so far. So we'll see how it goes.